You are watching Pak Media on Modi.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the middle of his first state visit to India, and when he landed in New Delhi's airport, he was greeted by a big hug from India's Prime Minister.
Yeah, the two men and the two nations seem to have grown closer because of similar security challenges and because of increased trade.
Meanwhile, there's another Israel-India connection. This one is growing online. Bloggers in India are working overtime to highlight all the connections between Israel's Jewish population and India's Hindu community.
The campaign is made up of thousands of social media accounts reaching hundreds of thousands of followers. Organizers say it's all part of an effort to show just how much Israel and India have in common. The hope is to create a stronger bond among their people.
All right, let's head over to our Tel Aviv headquarters, and there we find Elan Levy. Elan, answer me this. Netanyahu, during this trip, said he hoped Israel and India's relationship would broaden beyond just some lucrative arms deals. Is this visit helping him accomplish that?
Shayna, it takes a long time to build diplomatic and business ties. The results we'll see in future, but that's certainly what Netanyahu is trying to do. He's being accompanied by the largest ever trade delegation to join an Israeli prime minister, 130 people in tow. They're trying to expand Israel's cooperation with India in all sorts of fields. Netanyahu even trying to encourage Bollywood movie producers to come and film their movies in Israel. But salvaging the arms relationship is relatively high on the priorities list. Very recently, India cancelled a mega defense deal with Israel that would have seen it spend $500 million purchasing anti-tank spike missiles. India cancelled that deal as part of its own Made in India drive to try to protect local industries. And Netanyahu says he expects that they're going to be able to reach some sort of fair deal on that in order to enable Israel to continue selling that very lucrative contract to India.
Welcome back. We continue with our top story tonight about an 11-year-old Israeli boy who survived the Mumbai terror attack almost a decade ago, who has today returned for the first time to the house where his parents were murdered. Moshe Holtzberg was not even 2 years old when Pakistani terrorists stormed the Chabad house, murdering 6 people, including Gavriel and Rivka Holtzberg, who ran the Jewish center. Moshe was saved by his Indian nanny, Sandra Samwell, who managed to escape. He was later taken to Chabad house in South Mumbai, where on Thursday he will join Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the unveiling of a memorial to the victims of the attack. Joining me now, documentary filmmaker Oren Rosenfeld, who's accompanying Moshe and his family through Mumbai. Oren, great to have you. No doubt an extraordinarily tough day for Moshe. Talk us through what happened.
So our day still didn't finish. I mean, we left Tel Aviv yesterday at 9 o'clock and landed here in the morning, and it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning now, and Moshe had a crazy day. I mean, the minute we left the airport, he was swamped by tens of journalists, amount of journalists you don't really see in the Western world. Many cameramen, mics, all shoved in his face. He was shocked. Also, the family was shocked. They didn't quite know how to handle it because I was the only journalist with them in the flight. So, they had it easy. But the minute they stepped out of the airport, they realized that the story of Moshe here, baby Moshe in India, is huge.
Right.
All the TV channels were here, and it was really top news all day long.
And with as many eyes on this story as you mentioned, we know that it really puts a human face to the incomprehensible number of victims of terror around the world. Is there a broader message that's hopeful be taken from this visit?
Well, yeah, I mean, Moshe's... Well, he basically says that he wanted to come back here to show that terrorists didn't win. Although they killed his parents and many other people, he's now back here for the first time after, and he says that he actually wants to come back here and continue in his father's footsteps to manage the Chabad house in Mumbai. So his message to terrorists is that they didn't win and they're not going to win. And in the city of Mumbai with 17 million people of all different religions, it's an example how all religions can get along, and there's no room for extremists or terrorists.
All right, and just to a point that you brought up earlier, what kind of support does Moshe have with him? Because, this would be tough for any 11-year-old, never mind with all the cameras and the fanfare attached to it.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, he was saved by his nanny at the time, Sandra, that was with him on the flight here from Israel, as well as a psychiatrist that is always by his side. Both his grandparents from both sides, so 4 grandparents, and an uncle. So it's quite an entourage that is surrounding him all the time and protecting him. But he's a very lively kid and always running around and running from them and running back in the plane. He was running up and down the plane. But I think today when he actually landed here, he felt the pressure and he became a bit more nervous and anxious. And I think at the moment, the family is keeping him away from the media as much as they can and just saving him for the meeting with the Prime Minister on Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Well, let's hope that he does end up getting some strength and some closure from this. Oren, thank you for that insight. Well, up until now, Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to India has been dominated by meetings with officials and Indian business leaders. But today, the Prime Minister enjoyed some sightseeing. The third day of the 6-day trip kicked off with a visit to the Taj Mahal. It began with a colourful reception at the Agra airport and hundreds of people lining the streets to catch a glimpse of the Israeli leader. Now, this evening, it's back to business, flying back to New Delhi, where he once again reiterated the connection between the two countries.
The weak don't survive. The strong survive. You make peace with the strong. We have a special relationship to democracies. India is the world's most populous democracy. In a society that is pluralistic, diverse, and free, this is what India is about. This is what Israel is about.
Elad Itzkovich is the former commercial officer of the Embassy of India in Israel and joins me in studio now. Mr. Itzkovich, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Now, why are we seeing such genuine admiration from Modi towards Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically, but then India votes against Israel and the United States at the UN?
Thank you for this question. This is only a lip service toward the Arab world. It's important to mention that India has great connections with the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia, and it's important for India to maintain it. But let's talk about all the gestures that India has done over the last few weeks and months toward Israel. I just came back from a city called Kolkata in East India. India renovated an old synagogue there. The fact that Narendra Modi has waited to Benjamin Netanyahu next to the plane and the airport when Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived, it has a huge impact on the Indian community. The fact that Modi invited Bibi to his home state, Gujarat, it means a lot. And those kind of gestures, it has something in India.
Okay, but we know that Netanyahu will be pushing Modi for greater recognition of Israel's status, at least as a strategic partner of India. Do you believe this will bear any fruits?
I believe, but I don't think that we will be able to change the Indian perspective, that they will support us rather on the Arabs. But I do believe that India will assist Israel to close the gap toward the Islamic world, not only the Arab countries. We just received a declaration today that it might be that Air India will finally get the approval from Israel to fly over Saudi Arabia. It has a huge impact and huge influence by the Indian authorities that spoke to Saudi Arabia and encouraged it to go toward the Israelis.
Right. Now, we've seen a lot of fanfare and a lot of adoration and public acclamation when it comes to Modi and Netanyahu. But underneath the surface, as we've mentioned, a couple of things are going on that don't quite align with that. We know that India backed out of a $500 million anti-tank Spike missile deal earlier this year. Israel's now hoping to resolve that in this trip. Benjamin Netanyahu's come out to say hopefully that can be solved now. Do you see Modi budging on this when we know he's trying to build more, develop more locally?
Basically, we're talking about two different schemes. One of them is Make in India, and the second one is Design in India. It is very important for the Indians to be able to showcase very good products that they have designed and manufactured by themselves. We are talking here about very internal issue, a dispute between the Indian Army to the Ministry of Defense. It's also worth to mention that the Indian Army declared that he supports and wants the deal to happen with Israel.
Just briefly, you have to go for a break, unfortunately, but why India of all places? Why are we seeing such a strong bond and so much interest here?
Many reasons. I mean, just see Israel from the perspective and the eyes of a foreigner. Israel is a remarkable place. When Indians come to Israel, they're being overwhelmed by the infrastructure, the quality of the fresh produce, the water technology. It's amazing, and they want to duplicate it. Just think about it. Israel is half the size of the city of Mumbai.
Sure, many resources to share. Elan Itzkovich, thank you so much for being with us here on Perspectives.